We have a full agenda today, so let's get started. I'm going to have, here's the agenda. I'm going to have David talk about legislative updates. Today is the second to the last day of the legislative session, and we are ready for it to be over.
Very much so.
David, will you tell us about some of the proposed changes to the Student Data Protection Act?
Sure, and I guess I'll scroll into view here. Okay.
That's the camera.
Hi, everyone. So the mostly changes that we recommended and a few others that were added by the legislature are in Senate Bill 207, which passed both the House and the Senate as of last night. So it's pretty much going to become law. Let me actually pull up, because I have the actual bill on my computer, and I wanted to just kind of highlight. Oh, Kristen says, is there sound that I am missing?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Even though she doesn't hear your answer right there.
Yeah, oh, okay. Greg will talk about that. I'm going to talk about what the main changes within the Student Data Protection Act in Senate Bill 207. A lot of it is actually in the definition section, where we were trying to add more clarification in terms of how it relates to FERPA and some other requirements. I'm trying to see if there's anything.
I can give you an example of that.
Super noteworthy.
I know that in the Student Data Protection Act, it mentioned student data or student information, and folks, attorneys mostly, were confused on whether that was synonymous with education record and how that is defined in FERPA. And so we've aligned those definitions so that it means the same thing. And an education record, just to give you a little bit of reminder on that, is a record that is maintained by an LEA or a school, by an educational entity, and that it is directly related to a student. So those are the two criteria: what is maintained and what is directly related to the student. Anyway, go on with more changes.
Right. So I don't think that any of those are going to be too substantially different. One thing is, I'm scrolling down that I'm seeing, so around line 374 of the Act, there is a provision that essentially creates a new data collection where USBE is going to become the clearinghouse for Board of Regents for students in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, so you will be giving us information on those students, mostly their contact information, some of which has not previously been given to USBE in the past, such as the parent's name and the student's email address, so that we can pass those on to Board of Regents, and then they can mail out information regarding education opportunities. We're not entirely sure how that's going to play out entirely right now. It's going to require some development on the UTREC side, probably also on the SIS side. So stay posted on that.
I think an important thing to mention on that, David, is that the disclosure of parent name and contact information will require parental consent. This is not something that's going to be automatically just provided at the state level. And these are things that typically schools and LEAs are already collecting. They typically collect the name of the parent, but they typically don't provide that to USBE. So parents would be allowed to opt in and provide that parental consent to disclose the data. And so that's something that also needs to be developed within, if we use UTREX and the SIS system, is some kind of flag to show that the parent has consented. And then David will be doing a few monitoring visits to make sure that the checked boxes align with actual copies or some kind of digital electronic signature that you've collected from the parents.
Right. And in that same section, it's talking about the collection notice. This is one of the things we were happy with. Before, it just talked about, it was an authorization, a data authorization, and it was very confusing because sometimes the data authorization was used to release data, sometimes it was used to collect data. we've more clearly broken those out. So the expectation next year is going to be at the beginning of the year, in addition to the FERPA notice and director information notice that parents need to get, you need to give a collection notice. Basically, it's going to be a list of here's the data we plan on collecting on students this year, and here is what we have labeled as necessary. We need this to be able to function as a school. And here are some things we know that we're going to collect that are more optional. So you're letting them know that, and the idea is if they sign off on that, then that optional collection they're essentially authorizing. They're saying, yeah, that's okay. I suppose in many cases, the optional collection doesn't have to, that written authorization doesn't have to be at the beginning of the year. Like Whitney had the example where her son was in science class and they were doing an experiment involving like DNA, right? And so the science teacher could send home that authorization at the time and say, we're doing it for this purpose. It's not required that we collect your kid's DNA. Here's what we're going to do with it. Here's when we're going to get rid of it. So that's going to be the expectation regarding collection.
And we have been developing a model example of that. We'll need to modify it a bit based on the legislation if it is passed, fully passed. And so we will have a model for that for you before the end of the school year. And we're going to help you think through what data are necessary and what data are optional. I think the DNA sample probably leans
Things a little more optional.
Well, it's biometric data, and so that we'll be providing a lot more guidance on that, along with an example. This is just kind of a very brief overview. So this is not the last you're going to be hearing about any of these major changes, proposed changes to the Student Data Protection Act.
For 1819 or 1920 was the question. These all go into effect.
Now.
Yeah, I believe they would go into effect over the summer. Yeah.
I think they'll go into effect July 1st, and I think I think knowing that we can get a model out to you a lot sooner than just by the end of the year. So that's a good question. I think it is by July 1st to have this done. I think that it is going to be very helpful as a transparency piece of building trust that parents know what you are collecting. I didn't know DNA was being collected. So we have some work to do to make sure that we're being transparent on what we collect, and also so that administrators are able to ask teachers, what are you collecting, and are we doing that properly? So I think there'll be a quick turnaround, but we will be like all the other requirements that we have kept track of and made sure we're done, like the data governance plan, the IT security plan. This is something that likely in board rule will also be required to provide evidence of compliance by October 1st to USBE. So we're hoping to set you up for success and have this be as painless as possible. This is actually an improvement, though, when you before it was very confounded, the collection and the disclosure of data, and it was kind of confusing how it was written previously. So separating these, I think, is going to save you a lot of work, even though you might not appreciate that initially.
Right. And so that's also kind of, the beginning of the data life cycle. And there were provisions, and this is another area we've modified slightly for the end of the life cycle. So when data needs to be expunged, and a lot of this is complicated because there's like the state archives retention schedules. This is something we've been working on quite a bit recently. And basically, it as currently as written and as approved by both the House and Senate, it says that the State Board of Education needs to create rules that regard a timeline for when a prior student, so in the previous version, there was language that said once the student turns 23, for them to request for it to be expunged. We thought that number was just incredibly arbitrary. There are some cases where, honestly, after graduation, that student should be able to get something expunged.
Well, and there's also language in the record retention schedule saying that discipline records can be or must be destroyed after the incident is resolved. And so that could be as early as, you know, it's kind of up to the LEA, but we want to provide a little bit more guidance on that, making sure that you still have the ability to use kind of early warning systems, but that discipline records and medical records are expunged at the request of the parent or the eligible student, so a student that's 18 or over. So this is something that we've kind of sat on because the Student Data Protection Act did ask the board to make rules about expungement a year ago. And this is one of the things that we held off on until we could truly go through our record retention schedules with state archives, understand what the data are being used for. But I think it's time, and we think it's extremely important for us to provide better guidance and a model of what that might look like, because I think if we were adhering to the record retention schedule as is, this wouldn't have been mentioned. But I don't think record retention schedules are being, I think there's a lack of training and understanding of that. And so we're working on not just talking about discipline and medical records, but retention schedules in general. And David and Greg and I keep mentioning it. It's been a lovely
Valentine's Day.
We spent Valentine's Day together, all three of us. You can't see Greg.
At State Archives.
We spent at the State Archives all day. It was, and they had.
It was so romantic.
It was very romantic for us to learn about records management and also grandma requests. So we went through that day-long training, and later on, we're going to show you some examples of some training opportunities that State Archives has. We want to take on State Archives records management and provide more training for your records officers and for you. And in doing that, we have to understand the system, and it is a lot more complicated. It was a little bit of a steep learning curve, but I think we're getting a better handle on it. And it's kind of early to mention this, but on September 11th, you should remember that date pretty well. September 11th of this year, there will be a records management training for LEAs. 2 years, they have it every 2 years. Last time I went was at the Salt Lake City, the Slick Miller. I'm gonna dodge it. Anyway, it was really, really well done. But our goal is to have a very clean training and some guidance on record retention schedules, and that would include this portion on expungement. Wow, I'm kind of going off on a lot of these topics.
Yes, well, and I think
I want you to know if there's a change. We know that there's a change. We're going to provide guidance and walk you through it, provide training, and help with the monitoring of it, and not just leave you on your own. That's right. The message we're trying to send.
And also, especially with this expungement bit, that this is going to be a big priority for this next year. When Senate Bill 207 was heard in the House Education Committee, there was quite a bit of concern on this very topic. And the fact that, we have been working the past year and very little has been done on this. So that's more your heads up that this is going to be something we're all going to be working on together for this year. The next section that is probably relevant to LEAs that had changes is regarding sharing student data. And honestly, this was mostly just trying to clean it up to make it clearer that, FERPA is the law and we are only specifying things here if it's different than FERPA. So do take a look at that. And I don't think there was anything too major on the third-party contractor side of things or on the penalty side of things. So we will probably put out some more very specific guidance on, what is different now. I just wanted to kind of go over the main parts of what is going to change in the Student Data Protection Act. The other bill that is affecting the Student Data Protection Act is Senate Bill 125, which is child welfare amendments. So you might have completely missed the fact that it had anything to do with data privacy. And it modifies one small bit of the Student Data Protection Act, by clarifying, because there's a bit in there about when you may share with the Department of Human Services. And this is actually a question we've gotten quite frequently. And it adds language that says you may share with the Department of Human Services if they are legally responsible for the care and protection of the student, including the responsibility to investigate a report of educational neglect. We have discussed this with PTAC, and the feeling is essentially that this is permissible under FERPA because it is part of the state's child abuse laws that we have defined part of neglect as educational neglect. And so moving forward, this is clarifying what has essentially always been the case, but just to make it clear that you may share records with Department of Human Services as part of their investigation of educational neglect. As part of our state's, it's called CAPTA. I don't remember what it stands for, Child Abuse Prevention or Protection, whatever TA stand for. Teaching assistant, I don't know, probably not that.
Technical assistance?
I don't remember exactly what it stands for. The point being that just want to let everyone know that that is permissible. And also if there are exceptions within FERPA, such as the emergency safety and emergency exception, that have always been the case that, you know, if Human Services comes and you believe there is an articulable emergency involving the student's safety, then
What's the other word? Articulable and significant. That's what it is. I watched it last night.
You watched it last night? We're going to watch a video that goes over what I don't remember, which is why we put it in a video.
That's why we put video.
Yeah. So those are the two bills that directly are affecting student data privacy. There have been several other bills. I don't really want to go into, if there's any you want to go into detail, I don't think we have to. Several that are going to mandate data exchanges, mostly with USBE and other state agencies such as Workforce Services and Department of Health. We are making sure that those data sharing agreements are going to be in line with FERPA. Most of them are going to be outside of your scope of work, so don't need to go into them in too much detail.
Thanks. And we'll have more guidance, as David said, on what, you know, the definition of educational neglect. What does that mean? And there is a specific definition because it's kind of a no-brainer to disclose information when there's an investigation of abuse or but educational neglect, a little bit more of a gray area, and so we have definitions to share. I think we're going to put on our list of training videos one on some of these other issues that you know, when SROs or police ask for records, or Division of Family and
this kind of a general, we want to do a video on school safety issues in general, what you do if there's a subpoena, if a police officer comes, so that you all know.
Exactly. We get those questions quite often.
Yeah.
I wanted to show, and Jerry says it'll work, a video. We will see. Okay. We last month completed a video on the 4 major FERPA exceptions, and we wanted to include information on the other more miscellaneous exceptions. So enjoy. Having a hard time.
Where's the paper? Hold on one second. La, 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 la. Other exception! We've already covered the main FERPA exceptions, namely audit and evaluation, directory information, school official, and studies. This video will focus on some of the lesser known exceptions that you may not be aware of. Similar to how everyone knows and loves the Wizard of Oz,
but isn't aware of its equally great sequel, The Return to Oz. Man, those Wheelers still give me nightmares. So let's dig right into it, shall we? Student transfer exception. If a student enrolls in or intends to enroll in another school, then School A may share records with School B without parental consent. That is, so long as School A makes a reasonable attempt to notify parents of the record exchange. You know, an LEA can simplify this by including a statement in their annual FERPA notice to parents that they'll forward records on in the case of student transfer. Also note that the exchange doesn't need to be between the new school and the most recent school. Let's say the students attended 5 schools in the past 10 years. Well, all of those schools may share records with the new school. Oh, this is great. How many more of these do we have to do? What, there's 9? Oh, I don't have time for this. I got a photo shoot with GQ in an hour. I know. We can take it on the road. They may be able to outlaw dancing, but they'll never be able to outlaw LEAs disclosing data to parents of students who haven't turned 18 yet, or to the students themselves. Footloose. Footloose. If the parent still claims the student as a dependent, as defined in Section 152 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, then the school may share data with the parent if the student has already turned 18. If the disclosure relates to sex offenders or other individuals required to register under this law, then the disclosure is permitted. A school may disclose PII in connection with an emergency if the disclosure would protect the health or safety of students or other individuals. FERPA advises that schools take into account the totality of circumstances pertaining to the threat based on the information available at the time. If they determine that there is an articulable and significant threat to the health or safety of the student or others, then they may disclose the information with any individual whose knowledge of the situation is necessary to protect the health or safety of the student. Note that the Department of Education has regularly provided guidance that this exception should not be used in routine disclosures, say between other state agencies like Department of Health or law enforcement. It really should only be used if there's an imminent emergency. The disclosure is to accrediting organizations to carry out their accrediting functions. Records can be disclosed in connection with financial aid that the student has already applied for or received, so long as the information is needed to determine the amount, eligibility, and conditions of the aid, or to enforce the terms and conditions of the financial aid. And then YOU can have more money left over for sports tickets. Records may be shared with state and local authorities of the juvenile justice services, so long as state statute allows.
Thanks. Hi, sorry, it's cutting in and out. You get the gist of it. You saw about half of it, and there's a few other exceptions. I think we do need to see just the very end with David, let's see, jumping up. I think that's.
We're gonna have to reshoot that part.
We're gonna have to, oh, here we are. I think this is important to see. Okay, we have a lot of fun. How do I go back to this? I wonder. Jerry,
We need to share the screen.
my screen.
Oh, I think we're
Brilliant.
We're doing it.
Okay, we're doing it.
Oh, here we are.
So, yeah, that was the FERPA exceptions video. I guess it'll be done on Tuesday. We have to reshoot that last part. So everything you saw in there was accurate. There's a part at the end that was not accurate, and so we want to.
It was also very confusing. It was more that.
It was a little confusing too because David decided to speak very, very, very quickly, and I had a hard time understanding him.
Plus, I did it all in Greek. That was a real big mistake. We shouldn't have done that.
And I said it was all Greek to me, but I was just kidding.
Yeah.
They really.
We took you too literally.
Okay, so so FERPA exceptions video, and these are getting played quite a bit. I think we're sharing this with other states because these are pertinent to all states. Let's move on. We wanted to talk about the annual report that we will be reporting to the board. It'll be in, I think, June or July. And part of this report, we're going to include compliance metrics by LEA. If you remember, in October, we asked for these to be submitted to us. And so we wanted to give you a heads up that we will be publicly displaying your LEA by the requirements, just a little chart. We'll have stars or happy faces or thumbs up or green lights or something. And we will be reminding you of this and give you plenty of time to get up to date if you're not. So we'll show you an example of what that's going to look like before we publicly post that. And also, USBE has finally gotten a new website. And so we are able to join that migration. And so we've migrated our, we're official now, I'd say, because we were on UEN site. We still are on UEN site, but very soon we will be having a link that goes directly from UEN site to the official USBE site. This has all of the resources the UEN site has, but now if you go to the State Board of Education website and you look for us, you'll find us. And that's a good thing. We'll have a site, a link on UEN to go to the USBE site. We'll be keeping the UEN site, but we'll be dismantling it, and we will be having that focused on resources for teachers. And we'll see kind of, that's the vision for now. But there is the student data privacy site that we just had go live yesterday. So all the documents on there are ADA compliant, and our videos, which are linked on the USBE Media YouTube site, are they have closed caption, and so we want to make sure to make everything that we do accessible. Learn Platform Pilot. This is something we wanted to let you know about. Here's a quick question, a little bit of a quiz. How many educational applications that includes websites, software, did teachers or students use in Utah last week? Let's have a guessing game. How many? I'm a teacher, I'm a former teacher, I can wait. Anyone in the chat? I think David actually knows.
Oh, Robin.
Oh, Robin.
She overbid. $1. $1.
1 million. 1 million.
1 million.
That reminds me of that because
Applications.
that's Robin from.
Yes.
Is it 12.346?
Or she's doing it like in Europe, where it's actually we would use a comma.
Robert says
Robert has it right.
less than $1 or more than $1.
And the
Those are
actual
confusing.
bid is the actual price.
Actual price is 1,054 applications were used. I look a little bit. You should see how much we have to cut from these videos. It's just, it requires a lot of patience. So we want to let you know that some districts, some LEAs are really loving the Learn platform, which we USB has a contract for usage for the entire state, and some they don't use it as much, or you know, they have different methods. And the Learn platform is not utilized for privacy right now. It's used for looking at usage and monitoring what usually IT directors monitor what applications are being used. There's a Chrome extension that is useful if you have those Chromebooks out there. Not as useful if you have those Macs that Jerry loves. So whether you use Learn currently or not, we thought that Learn would be a good partner with us because they have all of the information and the infrastructure with all of the applications and the Chrome extensions of what is actually being used out there. And they also have the structure at the state, LEA, and the local level to make sure that curriculum directors, for example, are able to display which applications for instructional acceptability that they use. So, so we thought that this would be a good opportunity to not create something entirely different or new, but to have these applications vetted in a consortium, and that we post those for LEAs, for teachers, or anyone to use. Right now, we're in a pilot program. If you are so excited about this idea and think that you have something to add to the conversation, we want you to come to our next meeting, which is March 19th from 1 to 3. We already have a lot of excited LEAs working with us. Those have already started developing this for themselves so that we can develop something at the state level, so that you don't have to go through and read every privacy policy and get contracts from all of those 1,000 applications 154 times for every LEA. So we're working on that, and we will keep you updated on that progress. We want to talk about the data gateway. Are all of you familiar with the data gateway? Can you send me some validation through the chat that you're familiar with the data gateway? Maybe you have a login. Maybe you're even the LEA admin. Are there any chat? Are you guys out there? Yes. Susie, this is all for you. Oh, LEA admin. Okay. Yes. I knew you guys would know. We have looked at those access roles. If you're not familiar with the data gateway, maybe I should say that. Data gateway is a USB developed interface to where we look at, there's different levels of access at the state, local, even the teacher level. If you have a Cactus ID, you're able to log in to the data gateway. So you have a login, username and a password, and then you're able to access student records to perform the functions of your job, so that you're able to see the student growth percentile of a particular student, or you're able to see at the school level, if you're a principal, what the medium SGP or proficiency level is by content area. So it's actually got quite a few cool features. What our concern is making sure that the right person has the right access. So number one, I guess I didn't put number one here, but who is your LEA admin? Some of you are. Some of you don't know who they are, but that's important to know. And looking at the access levels, making sure that those who have access are actually still employed. This has been a problem just anecdotally in a few districts, to where someone left their position for some reason and they still have access to sometimes even state level data. That is totally inappropriate. What we suggest is making sure at least those exiting that is put into the exiting process. I'm sure they have to return a computer. I'm sure they have to fill out some forms. It should be part of the process that their access to the data gateway is taken away. So, so that is important. Also, David, how many different jobs have you had here? You've been in 2 different roles?
Yes.
2 different roles? I guess I've been in 2 different roles. Roles change, and we've only been here a few years. Oh, thanks, David. Not creepy. But roles change within institutions, and perhaps David here doesn't need access to state level data anymore. Perhaps he only needs access to a particular class or a particular subset of students. So we want to limit that access as much as we can. So we are going to create some guidance for you to let you know what particular roles that you set. We have the role of the metadata dictionary, the dictionary editor, what access that person has. That doesn't have any PII, but we're at least editing the roles to make sure that you know what the LEA admins know, and that you know what that role, what level of access that grants to a particular person. And so very soon we're going to reach out to you to have you do a self-assessment. I don't think it's going to be very time consuming. It's simply what we've done kind of in a little pilot is find out who has access, go to HR, say, are any of these people not employed? That's the easy low-hanging fruit. If they're not employed, make sure that that access is deleted, is restricted, is removed. That's the word. And then looking through, it's a little harder, making sure that a particular person still needs access to student data. And I think that we have these tools and they should be used. We hope that people use the data gateway often. It has really great information in there, but we hope that that access is minimal and limited only to the scope of work that your position requires. So a heads up on that. Okay, trainings. We have a lot of training dates in a variety of topics that are coming up. It seems springtime is training time. And I'm going to provide a link. Well, let's go through these one by one. So we have record management training. You can go and click on that state archives link, and we'll have this posted. It usually takes a few days to get the video posted, but here's some upcoming trainings that state archives puts on for that record retention schedule. This would be really great if you could go to one of these trainings. Ours will be fun. Our record retention, that's the vision, to have it be a little more fun, but they do a good job answering questions. So here's some existing trainings that they have. You can see that in Vernal. That'd be a fun trip. And then we have one in Salt Lake, and then we have a day-long one coming up just next week. So keep that in mind. There's a few others as well. And I also mentioned earlier on September 11th, they have a day-long conference for education record officers. If you do not know who the records officer is, and you have a very small district or charter school, and you are the data manager, I mean, you might be the records officer. Or at least you can at least be aware that here at USBE, Ben Rasmussen is the records officer. I am not, but we work together on this. So he has that role. You might have that role as well. Oh, this training, we are very, very, very lucky to have Jill Stacy come out. She works for the Colorado Department of Education and has worked on data sharing agreements for the past 10 years. Bless her heart. She is going to be providing a training. The maximum capacity for this training is 50 people. So if you would like to come, let me know sooner rather than later. We've told a few groups about this, but this is for anyone who's interested in data sharing agreements. That's with other agencies, organizations like United Way, researchers, how to best write that agreement. And she is going to be presenting a menu to LEAs and templates to LEAs that we've been collaborating, working on with her, to break it down to where you know what indemnity means and expungement means, and to break down some of these legal terms that we need a little bit more help on. And so we're going to be sharing and walking you through that document. I think this will be a very, very helpful training. We will not be recording that just because of the legal nature of it, but we will have the slides available. I suggest that if you are interested in this, come. If you know someone who would benefit, let me know, because there is a maximum on that, and that's from 9 to 12 Tuesday, March 20th. Okay, and I was going to have Greg talk about it, but I can talk about this. It's just one slide. We wanted to reach out to the regional centers and provide our availability to be there and help them with what they need help with. We have set aside some times. We've got times for news. I can't say SESC. There's not a, we have Qs and SEDC. So we're waiting to hear back from a few of them. We just reached out.
Back from them.
You heard back from who?
I'm waiting to hear back about a date and a time.
Oh, I see. Q's Greg has clarified that both of them have contacted and said they want us to come down, but we're not sure of the time. So we will let you know when we will be down there, and we're happy to you know, I found that when we do go down and we meet with districts or with regional folks and we sit around in a room of only 10 people and we walk through, we're basically there as a resource, and they'll say, well, we don't know how to solve this problem, and we'll be able to quickly provide them resources or answer that question. And it's a place where we're not going to come and stand there and present something to you. We're going to sit there and say, what do you need help with? And walk you through some things. And I think,
and what will we walk them through, Whitney?
We'll walk them through, we'll be particularly focusing on the metadata dictionary, walking them through that process, but also data governance plans, IT security training is a lot of fun to talk about. We're guns for hire, but we're for free. So we will come down and train teachers and principals and whoever will listen to our message. And what's nice, what we've heard from a lot of folks, especially IT directors or principals, they said, I've been telling my folks, for my teachers or administrators, for a number of years that this is important, but somehow they didn't think it was important until you came down and gave a presentation about it. So sometimes it's nice for you not to be the bad guy. We'll be the bad guy. And I think there's a lot to be learned. So let us know. We love to travel. We don't like to just stay at USBE, and we like to know what's really happening in the fields. Greg and David just went to Cache County on Monday. I think we travel quite a bit, and hopefully we're providing
something really fast.
Some service. Oh yes, Greg. You see the camera?
Wait till I'm in screen, and now. Robin, I see that she's on here. So we talked to Robin and Matt up in Cache and Logan, and Robin had an interesting question about videos. She was asking if they can take the videos that we've done and put them into their trainings. Yes, that's exactly what they're for.
Yeah.
But she also decided for the data security top 5 that we did a while ago, that one of the sections didn't apply to her district, and she cut that out and then input herself and recorded herself doing district specific items, which she was asking if that's okay to kind of cut things up and add in their own bits that will help their LEA or district or school. And the answer is yes.
Didn't she do kind of a funny one about, she did a funny one about data disclosures? Is that what it was?
It was sharing data as Dr. Evil, kind of.
We've gotten a few good ones from Ogden has one where
Ogden's is really
they have we'll share these on our website, but they have a student representing PII. That was a lot of fun. My favorite is when they kind of put the student towards the shredder.
It's great cinematography.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun ones out there. So yeah, exactly. I like take what we have done and then make it your own.
Don't split it up and make it say stuff that we're not actually saying. Like keep it chunked together. But the idea is those resources there for you. You can use the whole thing, or you can use parts and pieces of it, and then create the other parts that you need specifically for you. Just wanted to make sure that's clear.
Thanks, Greg. Let's see. That is our last slide. So I think we went through everything on the agenda. Ooh, we got out 10 minutes early. David, you're scooting over. Do you want to say anything, or you just want to be weird?
The latter.
The latter. Okay. Couldn't it be both? Couldn't it be both?
Yeah, I can say things of value and make them sound really weird.
So with that, one of the things. Oh, here we are. Yes, Scott, let's get in touch. As always, we're always here for you, and thanks for joining us, and have a great day. Is that all? Okay, we need to sign off. Say bye. Great. I'm
We're
moving
going to
this
go
over.
live our lives.
Okay, aloha.